Well, for more on this, we're now joined by Professor Dirk Kotze, Head of Politics at UNISA. Professor, thank you for joining us. I don't know how much of these more than 350 pages you've been able to look at, but this was so anticipated. Is it as explosive as anticipated?
Yes, I think the fact that we've seen the report now, that we could go through it directly, as firsthand, is really for many people it's a way of understanding what is behind it. It's also a way in which we are. Some of the anticipation is now gone, and I think it is in that sense it is a good thing, because many people there was a high level of uncertainty, the expectation that there could be something in that report that will be really detrimental to either President Zuma or to the cabinet or the government or the Gupta family or some of the SOEs, the state-owned enterprises, and we have no clarity on that. So from that point of view, I think it's a very good thing that the report was released.
Professor Kotze, you're the head of politics at UNISA, so let's explore the political ramifications of what's happened. For some time now, we've been hearing voices from inside the ANC pushing back, as it were, and calling for a little bit more attention to this whole state catcher story. And then today, the Save South Africa campaign got a surprise visit, maybe, from Gauteng leader of the ANC, Paul Mashatile. Tell us, in your view, what are the political ramifications of this state of capture report for the ANC and politics in general in the country?
Well, I think at this point it's not yet very clear of what are these ramifications, but I think what we are seeing is that in a sense it introduced the transition. The post-Zuma era to a large extent have started with the announcement of this report. Because we are seeing also the fact that it anticipates that the final conclusions of this investigation will only appear during the course of this, maybe the second half of next year, which is very close to the ANC's national conference. So it means that the new incoming leadership of the ANC will have to deal with the consequences or the conclusions of this report to a large extent. And I think what we are seeing is that within the ANC, some of the leadership in the provinces, those in government in themselves, some of the ministers, Kusatu, as well as the Communist Party, are repositioning themselves for the post-Zuma era. And someone like Paul Mashatile is well known as someone who hasn't been very supportive of President Zuma, for example, in the 2014 national and provincial election. As a result, he was became a backbencher in Parliament. He lost his position as minister, but now he has been reinstated as a member of the Executive Council of the province. So clearly, his Gauteng leadership is repositioning themselves for the period after President Zuma. The same is happening with Kusatu. We have heard the announcement of Nyawo. Before that, of SATU and of the National Union of Mine Workers. The Communist Party wanted to participate in this today's protest movement here in Pretoria, but after the announcement, after withdrawal of the charges against Minister Pravin Gordhan, they also withdrew from it. So we see that all of these different elements of the tripartite alliance are positioning themselves for the future. So from that point of view, I think it is an exceptionally fluid situation, but at the same time, a very dynamic situation within the alliance and the ANC itself.
Professor, looking at it, I want to come at it from an economic perspective, and there's been concern for a while, the rating agencies looking at our state-owned entities. Does this leave a huge question mark around them? Not conclusive findings, but SAA, the report noticing the contract with the New Age, with the newspaper, Denel, still an investigation to happen there. Eskom, the CEO, the report says did not declare his unusually close relationship with the Gupta family, and a phone record showing that 44 calls were made by him to one of the Gupta brothers. What does this mean for our SOEs and the way that they are perceived?
Well, I think the SOEs have become really a controversial part of our society and the South African economy for quite some time now. And they are not only linked to the state capture sort of accusations, but also to Minister Pravin Gordhan, because many of the problems that Minister Gordhan encountered and in response to investigations by the Hawks and ultimately by the NPA, the charges against him could almost be directly linked to some of the problem situations within SAA or Eskom or PRASA or the SABC. So in that sense, the SOEs have become really at the center of many of the issues that beset government in general and the problems of good governance in general, and financial discipline and restructuring of the budget and of the Treasury's responsibilities. What we have seen with this report is specifically that Eskom and the board of directors of Eskom have been identified as highly problematic. And I think tonight both Mr. Brown Molefe as well as Dr. Ben Nkubani are possibly very concerned persons about the conclusions of this report, because this is the one area where this report have made some relatively conclusive findings. In other areas, not so much. And it is definitely directly linked to the Gupta firms or businesses. So from that point of view, I think what we have heard also that there was now a special cabinet meetings, a 2-day cabinet meeting in Cape Town that was supposed to deal with SOEs in general. It therefore appears as if the SOEs are really being at the center of the political developments as well as governmental developments in general. Okay. And this report certainly confirmed the central position that they occupy.
Professor Kotze, just to perhaps in closing, I mean, I think at the back of all of this, that the opposing voices to the president actually want him to resign. At the end, that's what they want. They said he must step down. All these campaigns and some of these voices coming through. Is he going to do that? Must he do that? And if he doesn't, you said that this judicial inquiry will only come out at the end of sort of halfway through next year. Can the ANC afford to wait that long?
Well, this is a judgment call that you asked me to make. But I think for the ANC, they are really entering into a crisis mode or a crisis period, because it's not only because of this, the release of this report, also the situation around Minister Pravin Gordhan, but also, for example, the fact that the charges against Robert McBride have been withdrawn. The Nkandla situation is, we've just finalized that not long ago. The election itself, the ANC took serious losses in the election. And there's now a new reassessment within the ANC about what is the consequences or the costs of these losses. And I think all of them actually come back to President Zuma in the end. So therefore there is a serious sort of questioning whether the ANC can still afford the presence of President Zuma. At the same time, there's also going to be costs when he is forced to leave his position. You know, the legacy of the breakaway of COPE in 2008 is something which the ANC wants to avoid at all costs in future. The breakup within COSATU, because of the internal politics with the ANC, again cost the ANC very, very dearly. The fact that they have lost so many members between 2012 and 2015, and that they reported on last year at the National General Council, more than 450,000 members, again is a reflection on President Zuma's position. So if you take all of that together, then I think the objective conclusion is that the ANC will be in a better position without President Zuma.
Okay, and that's
but
where
at the same time, the organizational dynamics will make it very difficult for them to really implement that.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Professor Kotze, who's the head of politics at UNISA, thank you very much for your insights this evening.